Welcome to session 2 of Unlocking Learning. This one's called Making It Happen. I'm Dr. Lee Zeitz, and you'll notice that you're not seeing a video version of me. In your videos, when you create your videos for your flipped learning, include a video version of yourself. Camtasia makes it simple. Unfortunately, the technology that I have, I'm actually on vacation now, and I just wanted to make sure you would have this before we would have our next session, give you at least a week to work on it. So I'm doing second best, which is to show you pictures of where I would be showing my face speaking, and you should do the same because it gives a personal touch. Let's get on. We're going to be doing session 1. Remember we did session 1 last week on July 6th, and it dealt with supporting student success. This week we're going to be doing, or next week we're going to be doing session 2, Making It Happen, where we actually look at the implementation of flipped learning. We are going to go through the process to flip your lessons. Pretty snazzy, huh? Session 1, we were talking about learning and teaching. We got into what it takes to create meaningful learning experiences. Remember when you were thinking about the ones that were really meaningful to you. It brought up the idea of andragogy with adult learners and how we have to be aware of making it relevant, learning relevant to them. We want to lead learning, not make them learn. Flipping learning, the idea of lecture and homework. Remember, lecture is lower order thinking skills. Homework is higher order because you're trying to get them to analyze, evaluate, and create new things. And so if we flip learning, what it means is that we'll have the lower order thinking skills happening outside of class and the higher order thinking skills, the fun stuff, in class. We watched an example of Dr. Hansen's flipped chemistry video, and then I discussed 12 different strategies for engaging learners in class activities. And then we talked about organizing study packets for classes. On July 10th, I sent out an email, and this email was a follow-up. I hope that you had a chance to look at it. You'll notice that it had a link here for strategies for engaging learners in class activities. This was the page that you had. It gives you some background. I heard that some of you wanted to have more background or examples of how things happen. So what I did is I created this table. It has all 12 of the different strategies we were talking about, includes a description, and then I found either videos or articles, and articles in some cases. This is a really important one. It's one about discussions. But it's information you can use to find out how these materials or how these strategies can be used. There's other resources at the bottom. Here's a link to Dr. Kurt Hansen's flipped classroom video. Here's 20 engaging video learning apps you might find useful. And this was something called Teach Like This. I strongly suggest taking a look at this. These are short videos on how to teach, and I'm going through them myself to try to learn more. Session 2, Making It Happen. This is where we're looking at, we're going to experience the process of flipped classrooms. I could have just taught this in 1 week, but instead I wanted to make it at least 2 weeks because two sessions, because the first one we had the introduction, and now here's your opportunity to see what it's like to be a student in a flipped classroom. And what will happen is on July 20th, when we get together again, we will try the flipped classrooms. We're going to go through the steps for flipping your classroom. We're going to go through organizing your materials, creating engaging slideshows, creating effective videos, and then give you the option to work on creating your actual flip lesson between the time that you watch this and when we have our class on the 20th. Another something that I sent out in this letter, I want to point this out, is that I also had this part which said Session 2, Making It Happen. The Session 2, this is the outline for our Session 2. And it talks about steps in flipping your lesson. These are important points. I'm going to be covering them, but this is in written material. Identify a concept, identify the outcome, select an in-class activity, identify the necessary knowledge, and then create a flip, plan and create a flip video. So this has all that background that you're going to need, along with a number of other resources. I've done a lot of searching for you, trying to make your life easier. Well, let's get back to the intro. The goal for this video My goal for your goals for this video, actually, I have three. I want to see that you can plan a flipped lesson for one day. I want to see that you can organize activities and materials for that one flipped lesson. Remember, we're not doing it during this video, it's afterwards. This is the foundation for that. And then we're looking at you creating the video for your students that they could watch to prepare them for the in-class activities. Another important thing was that we want to take a look at how to make engaging PowerPoints and how to create these videos. I have some videos that I'm going to share with you that can do that. The very first one, it's a 4-minute video. I want to share this, and what I've done is this is a 4-minute video where she's identifying these points. Now, I do not like using lots of bullets and things like that, but what we can do is if we have these points listed to the left while we're watching a video, they can use those for context and understand how things are going. So we're going to watch this for the next 4 minutes.
Here are some of my best tips for creating effective slides for your presentation. You want to start with your title and make sure to include your name. If you're presenting to an audience other than your class, you might include a quick something about yourself. So here I've included my name and my job title. Tip number 1, your presentation should tell a story. Start with a hook. Open with something that is going to intrigue your audience and prompt them to sit up and take notice. From there, take some time to really think about what story you're trying to tell. Your goal should be to paint that picture through the visuals and text on your slides. You really want to keep your slides as simple as possible to make the most effective presentation. First off, pick a color scheme and stick with it. Search online to find great color combinations. The font you use is also really important. Just like you wouldn't want to use colors that clash, you want to use complementary fonts. Maybe the most important tip I will share with you today is to limit the amount of text you have on a single slide. You are giving a presentation, not creating lecture notes for your audience to read and study later. As soon as you move to a slide, your audience will have the tendency to instantly read every word on that page as soon as it's displayed. If you project a bunch of words on the screen, your audience is going to be focused on reading the text instead of listening to you talk. Your goal is to have one main idea per slide. This is key to keeping your audience focused and following along with the point you're trying to emphasize. What's on the screen should be what you're talking about. On that theme, use bold images and text to keep your audience engaged. Visuals can be particularly effective in achieving that goal. If you're talking about Twitter, add an image to your slide and use text sparingly. Your audience will use the visual clue to keep focused on what you are telling them. Be aware of color contrast to really make your presentation pop. If you have a dark background, you want to use light text. With a light background, use dark text. Again, search out color combinations online that work best together. When presenting data, it's really important to use effective charts. Don't use too much data, and what you do display, make sure it's visually appealing and legible. If your data is talking about percentages, you probably want to use a pie chart. Make sure to limit the number of slices to no more than around 6 to keep things easy to read. Vertical bar charts are best to show changes in quantity over time. For example, if you want to compare data over several years, a vertical bar chart like this works really well. Horizontal bar charts can be used to compare quantities. You want to limit the number of bars that you use to keep things easy to read and your audience engaged on what you're talking about rather than trying to read and analyze everything that's on the screen for themselves. Finally, line charts are a really effective way to demonstrate trends. Most importantly, if your presentation doesn't flow, you will lose your audience along the way. After you've made all your slides, it's critical to go back and look at the order. Does it follow a logical flow? Are you telling a story to engage your audience and to keep them interested? You began with a hook to capture your audience's attention, but how do you liven things up in the middle to keep everyone engaged? Perhaps use a bold visual or something light to keep the energy going. Don't forget to conclude by summing things up for your audience at the end. Circle back around in your closing. Repeat the really important stuff. Provide a call to action if you want your audience to do something with this new information. And that's it. Those are some of my top tips to creating effective slides for your presentation. Good luck.
That was really good. Now I want to point out a couple things. I didn't start this using telling a story. I should have, but I didn't. I'm trying to keep things simple. I'm limiting the bullets and those sorts of things. One idea per slide. I hope that what I'm showing you is something I can use to demonstrate how these work. Now in this case, you'll notice I could have done this with 5 bullets, but instead I use 5 icons. Identify the concept, identify the outcome, select an in-class activity, identify necessary knowledge, and create the flip video. Think about these videos. These icons, just the pictures themselves can help you remember what they are. Bullets don't do that. So, identify the concept. Okay, let's go to the next page. Notice I took that bullet, or that icon, and put it over here. Identify the concept is straight out of this page. That makes it simpler for them to remember. So, this week, what I'm going to do is I'm modeling what I'm doing in a flipped classroom to prepare you for our July 20th session. But I want you to think about how you would do it. First of all, this concept, what I want people to learn this week is how to create a flipped lesson. The outcomes. These are the outcomes. Notice we have the target up here. The outcomes. Design a plan for flipping a lesson. This is what I'd like you to do. That process is to identify and design an activity you'll use, the pre-class activities, the pre-class video, and then discuss those ideas with your educators. We'll be doing that as part of the class. Remember, this says to identify what is it you want to do for an activity and design it. I know you have lots of things to do this summer, but you can at least sit down and identify and prepare these things. You don't have to create them. And this actually should say to create the pre-class video as well. You don't have to create them, although that would make it even more effective for you. This week's activity, as I said, this week's activity is what you can do is it's going to be for people getting together to talk. Once again, if you want to find out ideas for this week's activity, go to this page, which is the strategies for engaging learners in in-class activities, and you'll see a whole variety of opportunities, things you might want to try out. Creating a flipped learning video this week. There's 4 parts to this. Now these 4 parts are in this section called making it happen. This is that whole process of how to create a flipped lesson. And the first one has to do with context. Provide your students the context as to why you're doing this, which is what I did at the beginning. Secondly, provide them with the content. Now I've provided it to you through video. I've provided it to you through, and I really didn't get heavily into the content right now, but I've given it to you in written format. But you want to spend no more than 7 minutes talking about each part of the content. Remember, we have a limited thought span, where we're talking about how long attention span as to how long people can remember things. I am doing this whole thing as one video, and the reason I'm doing that is it's what you're going to be doing in the CEP program. Typically, you want to keep these videos down to, say, 7 minutes or less, but we're putting this all together so you can see how it's done and how I'm using different formats to help break things up as we go. Instructional materials. You want to provide them with the instructional materials that they're going to need so they're preparing for what's going to happen in the activity. And then you have the classroom activity that actually happens in class. So, the video and maybe some other things that you send to them, things that are in your packet, things you put in your packet, provide context. You have the content. The instructional materials are part of your packet, and the classroom activities where you actually use it. I hope that's clear. Tips for effective videos. Now we've talked about how to create effective PowerPoints and slideshows. I have a 2-minute video here that really does a great job about showing about how to create effective videos. Let's watch this 2-minute video.
Instructional videos are powerful tools to enhance student learning at home. They allow students to learn at their own pace and free up time for teachers to support students individually. But too often, they lose their effectiveness because educators make common mistakes. Research has found that videos are often too long, too confusing, too unengaging. Avoid common pitfalls by following these 5 tips. The longer the video, the less likely students will pay attention. Research shows students start tuning out after about 6 minutes. Instead of having one long video, think about breaking a lesson into short segments. Too much text on screen can overwhelm students. Instead, use visual cues like arrows to indicate key concepts, and diagrams to help explain ideas. Students learn less when they listen passively. Throughout the video, encourage students to reflect and take notes. Check for understanding by incorporating questions and short quizzes. Organize your video into chapters. That way, students can find a section quickly when reviewing materials. Students will be more engaged if the video feels authentic. Use a casual tone and speak encouragingly. And remember to just be yourself. Make students feel like they are in your classroom.
So there you have it. I want to go back and point out something here, and that is that I'm using short videos here. Notice that none of them are over 7 minutes. I want to make things as clear and concise as possible in the way I'm organizing the video. Encouraging active listening, asking people to think about ideas. I didn't incorporate that here, but it is something we'll be talking about when we meet on the 20th. Break into chapters or sections. In other words, you have different parts. We started out and we had the intro, and then we went in and started talking about what's been happening. So in other words, we have different parts that people can go to, and in some cases I'm using a video to cover it, in other cases I'm talking. And be yourself. So now it's your turn. It is time for you to go ahead and do that. Flip your own lesson. I want you to make this meaningful. And remember, this is how you're going to make a difference in your students' lives. It'll also make a difference in your life because it gives you a whole different perspective on teaching, on learning, and making things relevant. Well, I hope that this has been useful for you. I look forward to seeing you on July 20th, and have a great week. Bye.